Hello, everybody. Welcome to Eritrea YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about something that is in the minds and hearts of everybody, something that really jarred everybody's thought process, reality. It's something that disturbed everyone, and that is, the developments in Ethiopia, the Abiy's change of heart, unexpected change of heart. Well, unexpected for many, but many also knew what Abiy was up to for a long time. Today, we are going to talk about what is really going on to get deep into the subject matter so people have a basis and understanding as to what is truly happening and why. This message is directed primarily at the people of Ethiopia, because this is one of the most critical moments in the history of Ethiopia. This could unravel Ethiopia as you know it, and once and for good. And that's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be good for anybody in the region. That's the reason why, more than ever, now we have to pay attention to what's happening and why. And some of the historical perspectives are being brought up by the Prime Minister himself, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to make a case. What I'm going to try to do is to talk why this is happening, how it developed to where it is, geopolitical implications, what it means emotionally, politically, economically, diplomatically, militarily, and for the region. But first, I would like to urge you to support Nafasit Post newsletter by subscribing and donating to support and help us get out our message, our information, our perspective. And also make sure to like and subscribe to the Eritrea YouTube channel so we can get more content that informs you about what's taking place. Try to give you the accurate picture of what's going on in the Horn of Africa and around the world. So your support is crucial. But first, let's say thank you to our supporter, sponsor, Select Concierge Travel Agency.
Welcome to Select Concierge Travel Agency, your passport to the world's most extraordinary experiences. At Select Concierge, we're not just a travel agency, we're your personal concierge for all your travel needs. Need to book airline tickets for your dream getaway? Or perhaps embark on a cruise to exotic destinations? We've got you covered. Discover the perfect vacation rental or find the ideal hotel with our expert guidance. Dive into the heart of the wild with unforgettable safaris and explore the world's wonders through expert guided tours. We ensure you travel in style and comfort with airport transfers, private jet charters, and special accommodations for all our travelers. Say goodbye to the hassles of visas and passports. Our experts handle it all. Select Concierge Travel Agency. Your journey, your way.
I have been writing about, the region for a long time. I've written a book about the history of the USA and Eritrea. I'll tell you why it's relevant, why I'm bringing it up. So I have a relatively decent understanding of what's going on in the region, the developments, because I've been writing about it for a long time. So when we heard what we heard in the parliament by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, we were shocked. Everybody was shocked because we did not believe that it is possible to see things turning south in the way that they are today, this abruptly. I have been warned by people that are in the know for a long time the tendencies of the Prime Minister. People have been telling me this person is not trustworthy. This person has tremendous amount of arrogance. This person is unpredictable, and you will soon find out what kind of a person that he is. And I've also been told that a lot of the policies that he makes, they are his own. And so there is no deep political policy with the understanding of the implication of the geopolitical developments, with the implication to the people, the country of Ethiopia. It just, the whole thing seems very abrupt and not well thought after. And I think that's the case. And I want to try to prove that is the case. And so what I'm going to do, since he brought Haile Selassie, he talked about historical developments that led up to this. I am going to give a historical perspective, an accurate historical perspective of what especially happened since World War II. We can go beyond that, but there's absolutely no reason to do it. What Abiy Ahmed Ali is doing, there is no justification for. It is all illegal, and it's extremely dangerous, and it's adventurous. It's not strategically savvy. It's not politically savvy. It's not geopolitically savvy. It puts Ethiopia in a grave danger. So just to give you a little bit of historical context, I'm taking a lot of this information from the book that I've written, The History of the USA and Eritrea. I'm talking about it because what started in 1941 is what is taking place now. It's a continuation of what the United States started in 1941. Like Haile Selassie, Abiy Ahmed Ali has agreed to implement that process. And I'm going to talk about that. In 1941, this is at the height of the World War II, the British, while under bombardment by the Nazi Germany, requested for assistance. Churchill called Franklin Delano Roosevelt for assistance for the war that was taking place in Eritrea and Ethiopia and Libya, Egypt, and that region. The French were decimated. They were taken over by the Germans. They didn't have any power. And the Americans agreed to help the British. They sent about 2,000 soldiers in Christmas of 1941, and they arrived to Eritrea in January. And they defeated the Italian colonizers that colonized Eritrea for nearly 60 years. At that time, Haile Selassie was in exile. Haile Selassie was brought back to Ethiopia. One thing to note, this is a historical fact. It's not denigration of Ethiopian history in any way. You can look it up. It's your history. It's something that you need to know. In 1935, when the Italians attacked Ethiopia for the second time, they marched right into Addis Ababa, 1935. Haile Selassie got on a train through Djibouti. He fled to Europe.
Fleeing from his country before the conquering Italians, Haile Selassie arrived at Gibraltar and lunched with the British governor. Later, at his hotel, the Negus, who is still Emperor of Ethiopia to all nations but one, was photographed with members of his suite. From the balcony, the Emperor looked out over the bay at the British warship.
For 5 years, they were using Haile Selassie as a symbol to garner support in the United Nations. So they were planning to come to Africa at that time. So in 1941, when Haile Selassie came back, Haile Selassie showing the interest for the Red Sea, and the United States, for the first time, wanting to come to Africa. As you well know, except for in Liberia, the United States did not have a colonial presence like the British, the French, the Italians and others, Portugal and others, in Africa. And post-World War II, the United States wanted to come to Africa. But at that time, Africans wanted to become independent. Africans wanted to get out of the colonial suppression that they were in. And the United States wanted to come in and establish a presence in Africa. Their overall Africa agenda is something that we can talk about on a later day. But to focus on our region and to focus on Eritrea, what they wanted to do was to have a presence in Eritrea. And in order to have a presence in Eritrea, they wanted to have a legal agreement with a nation like Ethiopia that they have a say on or control or influence. And so they made an agreement with Haile Selassie for him to get access to Eritrea. But since Eritrea was under the Italians of the colony of Italy, they did not want to come and just take over Eritrea and become the colonizers themselves. One of the agenda, the United States had 5 clear agendas when they came to Africa in 1941. And those were, 1, they didn't want to be seen as colonizers. 2, they didn't want nationalist African countries. 3, they didn't want nationalist leaders. 4, they did not want to have the Soviet Union or communism have influence. And a lot of the countries that wanted to become independent at that time in Africa, the Soviet Union at that time sympathized with them and wanted them to be independent. Number 5, the creation of the United Nations, which has provided a forum for agitating the colonial issue and a mechanism for its liquidation. They wanted to make sure that the former colonizers of Africa, the British and the French, they wanted those 2 countries to keep controlling their former colonies in a different way. Most important point when it comes to Eritrea and Ethiopia and the United States is the United States wanted to get access to Eritrea. They wanted to establish a base in Eritrea because it's one of the most strategic places on earth. They wanted to put an intelligence base in there from where they can listen to the entire activities of the world. This is pre-satellite. And also, there's something that they call triangulation. What is triangulation? Israel, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and then the Strait of Hormuz, Iran. You control those 3 key points, choke points, the Suez Canal, the Bab el-Mandeb, and the Strait of Hormuz, in one of the most strategically important places of the world, and in one of the most richest places of the world. This is at the core of the Arabian-Nubian Shield, where you have one of the most richest, resource-rich, rare earth metals, oil, gas, copper, potash, you name it. That area has it. This is an area that includes Jordan, partly, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Egypt, Sudan, Eritrea, Somalia, and parts of Ethiopia where the Nile is. That is a part of the Arabian-Nubian Shield, one of the richest mineral resources rich area of the world. That's the center of gravity. And so they wanted to establish themselves there. They established Israel in 1948. They came to Eritrea, but they did not want to directly control Eritrea, so they used Ethiopia, they used Haile Selassie. 1952, the Federation Agreement was okayed by the United Nations. In 1953, the United States signed an agreement with Ethiopia to establish a base in Asmara. in Kanyo Station. Haile Selassie, when he came from exile to Ethiopia in 1941, didn't have any power. He was helpless. He was powerless. He didn't have army. He was very vulnerable, and the British were protecting him, and they also controlled Eritrea at that time for 10 years. Eritrea was controlled by the British Military Administration, BMI. British Military Administration, BMA. It was under their administration. That's when the British pillaged, really robbed off the country to undermine its viability, while at the same time working the United Nations to okay the Federation program, which was a wink and a nod for Haile Selassie to annex Eritrea and control Eritrea, because they did not believe that the people of Eritrea can come back from it. And so when Haile Selassie came from exile, he didn't have any military, he didn't have any armament, and he asked the United States for arms. You can look this up. This is your history. This information is released under Freedom of Information Act. You can see it in the U.S. government documents. So when Haile Selassie asked for armament, the United States told him, we can't justify to give you any arms. And at that time, the United States wanted to attack Korea, North Korea, and they asked the United Nations, and the United Nations refused to accept that. So they wanted to create a coalition of the willing, and they asked him, if you want to receive arms from us, you need to go to Korea with us, become a representation of Africa in Korea. So Ethiopia ended up participating in the Korean War. Haile Selassie was happy to send his army, and that was part of his Kibur Zabanya Kanyo battalion. So in honor of that, the Kanyo station in Asmara was named under Kanyo station. Anyway, that's the history. So when Abiy talks about confederation, he is actually saying it wrong. It's federation. Eritrea was federated with Ethiopia by force, manipulation, all kind of manipulative tactics. And then in 1961, Eritrea started the quest for independence. The erroneous statement that Abiy Ahmed makes to claim that the people of Eritrea opted to fight for independence because Haile Selassie annexed Eritrea. The struggle for Eritrean independence started in 1961. That's historical fact for you, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali. The people of Eritrea were fighting for independence. Those who lived in the 1940s know how the British suppressed the people of Eritrea, how they decimated the country economically to undermine Eritrea's aspirations for independence. They divided the country. They tried to divide the country religiously, ethnically, geographically, regionally. That is one aspect of the history. The people of Eritrea fought for 30 years, from 1961 until 1991. The TPLF did not give Eritrea the ports. The TPLF didn't have a choice in the matter when Eritrea became independent. The TPLF was trained. Go back and look at your history, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali. Go read Dr. Aragaw Berhe's book. He will tell you everything, how the TPLF from Ethiopia ended up going to Mera Eritrea and trained. 1991, when Eritrea won and controlled Eritrea completely and entered Ethiopia, for the first time in the history of Africa, an African independence fighters, they went into the center of Ethiopia, the center of gravity for Africa, uprooted the government that was there in Ethiopia, the Derg regime, one of the most powerful military governments that stood. They were taken out of power. And a new government was put in place that was supported by the people of Eritrea, by the struggle for the independence of Eritrea. Eritrea, at that time, had the control of the entire country of Ethiopia. At that time, had Eritrea wanted the disintegration of Ethiopia, it would have been very easy. Ethiopia was decimated after Mengistu Haile Mariam. But the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia needed peace, and that was the aspiration of the people of Eritrea. They didn't want to see the continuation of the fight, the enmity, or anything like that. And the TPLF knew that. Like you, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed Ali, Meles Zenawi came to Asmara, stood in the Asmara Stadium, and he said, "We will not scratch your wounds."
عينة معراف نوارو سوانا تات لازمكم نقرأكم ويفتنن انتقني مسلخ انزل لكم يفلت انت منتاي مسلخهم انتسبرحوا انتسبوا غربات يفلت انت منتاي تمسات على قتلي على زوانين زوان قتلين قبل يفلت إذا حالف معراف رسعوا يولكم درسع نجار يكون أنت ورث لزلوا جن وسناخ نحكي خيرنا وتلقون تحكي يولكم
and pretended that that was going to be the feature of our region. So the TPLF never ceded or never had the power to control the fate of Eritrean territories. Again, that is a mistaken representation of history, a history that you're telling the people of Ethiopia, especially the kids of Ethiopia, wrongly. That is something that each and every Ethiopian must know, need to know. You can go look it up in all these historical documents. Look at Dr. Berha Aregawi, who was one of the founders of the TPLF. In his doctoral dissertation, wrote about all the history. It's biased. It's got, of course, there are some biases there, but aspects of the history of it, the correct history, are there, and it's not like what Prime Minister Abiy is telling it today. So those two facts or errors that he wanted to tell the Ethiopian people to make a case as to why Ethiopia was robbed from having access to sea is factually erroneous, misleading, deceitful, and a lie. The people of Eritrea always wanted the people of Ethiopia to use the ports, and they have used it traditionally. The ports was used by the entire world. It was a trade route. It is a trade route. The EPLF, the Eritrean government, has always wanted Ethiopians to use it. We want economic integration. We want the prosperity of Ethiopia. Ethiopia being successful is good for Africa. The vision that we have as Eritreans for the region and Africa is complementarity, partnership, regional integration, working together for collective growth. So what happened? Why did Abiy, who came up with a lot of hopes and really gave the people of the region hope in ways nobody's ever done, flip in the manner that he did? It is one of the saddest moments in our history to see a leader who made a commitment for peace ended up completely going wrong. You wonder why, and that is another subject matter that I want to share with you. In 2016, at the heart of the Ethiopian struggle to get rid of the TPLF, that was during the Obama administration, that Sudan Rice sat in the center as a national security advisor for the Obama administration. All the people that are with the Biden administration right now, including Biden as the vice president, were part of the Obama administration. So the Obama administration did not want to see Eritrea off the hook. They want to keep the pressure on Eritrea. They wanted to keep Eritrea under pressure. They wanted to see Eritrean youth disintegrate, leave the country, so Eritrea would have no one to defend it. So Eritrea didn't have, or does not have, economic viability. So Eritrea could not develop its economy. So Eritrea would not have the workforce that it needs to develop the country. So the country does not have continuity. But the ingenuity of Eritrea, the resilience of Eritrean people, the people that came from the 1991 struggle after independence, in 1993, Eritrea conducted the referendum, and 4 years later, less than 5 years, the TPLF started war. Why? Because they didn't want Eritrea to grow. They didn't want Eritrea to establish itself economically, to grow faster than Ethiopia. They did not want that. And so, what did they do? They started war. They started the war. At that time, the United States was the unipolar nation that controlled the world. The Soviet Union fell. NATO continued pressing itself towards Russia. The United States controlled Africa using anchor states. And what happened in Ethiopia? The TPLF was there. The only thing that they have remained. We can talk about the process and how the United States was able to control the entire region. We can go talk about Rwanda, Congo, Uganda, South Sudan, how that developed, Dr. Goering's death, and all those developments that are connected to it. The only thing that was left at that time was Eritrea. Had the Clinton administration achieved what it wanted? Believe it or not, the Clinton administration knew how strong the Eritrean government, the Eritrean people, the Eritrean army was. We know because we know the people that at that time were running the State Department. In 2000, after the war has shown the Clinton administration that Eritrea could go on the offensive and undermine Ethiopia, they forced the signing of the Algiers Agreement. That led to the Hague, and the Hague decided the border demarcation, and that is also final and done. This came not because of what Ethiopia wants. It came about because of the strength and resilience of the people of Eritrea. Even then, the people of Eritrea did not want to undermine the stability of Ethiopia. So, come back to 2016, the Obama years were winding. The Trump administration was coming to office in 2016. This is one thing that I want the Ethiopian people to know again, because it's extremely crucial. In 2016, when the Trump administration came, people like Dana Rohrabacher, congressman, he was from California, him, Christmas, and others, they wanted to see Russia, Eritrea, and Ethiopia back in the sphere of influence of the United States. They want Eritrea and Ethiopia to be at peace, work with the United States, and they also wanted to work with Russia. So that's where the Russiagate of the Trump administration comes from. They did not want him. They wanted to continue what they're doing in Ukraine. They started in Ukraine in 2014. And that's what they wanted to do. And so, in 2016, when the Trump administration took over, the relations between Eritrea and Ethiopia were fixed. 2018. Had it been the Obama administration or the Biden administration, that would not have happened. But the Trump administration wanted to work that angle. They wanted to also work with the Gulf states, and they also wanted to work the relationship between the Gulf states and Israel. So that's where the Abraham Accord comes from. So what are we doing? We are still working on the triangulation that I talked about earlier, which is Israel, Eritrea, Ethiopia, this time, peaceful Eritrea and Ethiopia under Trump, but they were still going after Iran. As you remember, President Trump did away with the nuclear agreement, the 5+1 agreement that the United States signed with Iran. And because they wanted to pursue aggressively Iran to undermine it, to do regime changing, so they can continue that triangulation idea. In 2020, the Biden administration, before it came to office, they were threatening Abiy with war crimes, and they wanted to continue using the TPLF to run as proxy. The TPLF started its war, and Abiy was engaged in the manner that he was, and with the understanding that the regional integration, as he professed, was what he wanted. That's what I believe. That is my personal belief. And initially, when he first came to office, I didn't believe him. But as soon as that peace agreement was signed, he went to Asmara, President Isaias went to Ethiopia, then I was convinced this guy is for real. But people that went to Ethiopia at that time, they were telling me, no, he's not. But I didn't want to believe that, because maybe we were in denial. We wanted to see signals from the Eritrean government that this guy is in any way bad. But when the TPLF attacked Ethiopia and Eritrea, the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia collectively, with Eritrea taking a very, very important role, the TPLF controlled 80% of Ethiopia's military. They controlled the economy. They controlled everything about Ethiopia. Abiy Ahmed, the people of Ethiopia didn't have a military institution that they can call their own. The TPLF controlled it. If it was up to the TPLF, Ethiopia would disintegrate right now, or would be under control of the TPLF, or one or the other. But Ethiopia would not be in the shape that it is had it not been for Eritrea. The people of Eritrea sacrificed and paid dearly and ensured that the continuation of Ethiopia happened. The people of Ethiopia saw this. The partnership between the Eritreans and Ethiopians during the war was incredible. We lobbied American Congress. We went to congressional representatives together in the United States. We coordinated and started the No War movement. And this was something unique in the history of Africa. It was something that uplifted, gave us hope. The vision was regional integration, working together, Eritrea and Ethiopia working together, Somalia with us working together in one of the richest areas of the world, with a lot of people that can manufacture a lot of things, helping each other, establishing railways and communication systems that integrate our economies, develop tourism, use our comparative advantages to support each other. Ethiopia has tremendous amount of power, electricity that it could generate from the Abiy River. Ethiopia's rich agricultural area could feed the world. And Eritrea sits in one of the most strategic places of the world. Eritrea is extremely rich with resources. Eritrea has a very, very educated population. So the symbiotic relations that could create the economies and the lives of the people together was just simply incredible. I was hopeful. I was looking forward to that. For the first time in our history, we have a very strong leadership in Eritrea that had a pretty good influence in the region. Eritrea was slated to be isolated by Washington. The TPLF worked to isolate Eritrea very hard for a long time, and Eritrea overcame that. Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Somalia signed the agreement. But for our region, Eritrea, Ethiopia, coming together, especially militarily, using their strength, there is no competition in the region or even in Europe that could counter that. We are sitting in one of the most strategically important places to the world. And we have very good influence of the region. And we have, for the first time, an opportunity to control our destiny. Who didn't want that to happen? The West and Washington. So how many envoys did they send? What incentives did they give? What carrot and sticks did they play? We all can guess what that is. But eventually, Abiy capitulated. Abiy Ahmed Ali capitulated. So what is the agenda now? You know, he brought the history. I talked about the history earlier. So what's the agenda? What is he trying to achieve? Abiy Ahmed Ali's betrayal is not only to the people of Eritrea. He betrayed the people of Somalia. He betrayed the entire region. He betrayed Africa. I've heard many Africans say that because he is violating the sacrosanct colonial boundaries that Africa abides and lives by, the African Union needs to get out of Ethiopia. So he's basically undermining the African continent. He's undermining the Horn of Africa. He's undermining the Red Sea countries to pursue NED's agenda, Open Society Foundation's agenda, which is open borders, to undermine the African colonial boundaries. He brought up the subject matter of the Afar. He said there are Afars in Ethiopia, Afars in Djibouti, Afars in Eritrea. Why? And 3 different countries will be destabilized because of that. That's a fantasy, but that is his agenda. What are they trying to achieve in Eritrea, Ethiopia, and the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea using Abiy Ahmed Ali? What has he promised to do for them? Last year, 2022, in January, Michael Rubin wrote an article. Is Abiy getting ready to attack Somaliland? He pointed out to an area 17 miles of Djibouti. There's a port called Zayla. Mike Rubin said Ethiopia is ready to attack that. So what's the agenda? What the agenda could be here if Ethiopia somehow succeeds to take over that area and try to create facts on the ground based on that. To control the Red Sea. In other words, they want to go back to that 1941 agenda to have Ethiopia control, or they want a country that they can control to control the Red Sea. So that angle, Israel, Ethiopia, and Strait of Hormuz triangulation, they can have that. Once they have that, they control the entire region. Abiy's decision to go against the region and Eritrea is ill thought of, poor geopolitical miscalculation, huge historical mistake that's going to impact Ethiopia in ways that it could never redeem itself. But the reason why Abiy Ahmed Ali cannot succeed, he doesn't have the power to go against Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Eritrea. In 2016, President Putin, agreed with Egypt to provide nuclear energy and supply them with the fuel necessary to do that, in exchange for primary access on the Suez Canal. As you know, the Egyptians have been getting away from the West. And so Russia is investing billions and billions of dollars in Egypt. The Saudis, after 2014, especially after 2011, after Obama's Asia pivot, have gone away. They're not completely gone away from the West, but they have established an independent path and carved their own pathway to greatness. They have the resources, they have the money, they have the influence, and they have played everything well. And because of Obama's Asia pivot in 2014, they were able to align themselves with Russia and China. What Abiy is doing is going against everything that they want. Eritrea wants stability. Egypt wants stability in the region. Saudi Arabia needs stability to pursue its 2060 agenda and 2030 agenda. The 2030 agenda is very, very comprehensive. You can go look it up. I don't want to spend time talking about it, but they're doing a lot of things that is connected to the Red Sea. And they're also, as I said earlier, part of the Arab-Nubian Shield. Up until 2009, Saudi Arabia worked with the United States and the TPLF to undermine Eritrea. When the sanction came in 2009, the Arab League were the first to condemn Eritrea. This includes Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Eritrea was able to change that. Those countries are now partners. The people of Ethiopia could have taken advantage of this. They are naturally a part of that. They are a very, very important part of that, because Ethiopia is strategically very, very important. Why? Because it is a source of the Nile. It is sitting in one of the most strategically important locations. It is surrounded, it borders Kenya, Somalia, South Sudan, Sudan, Eritrea, and Djibouti. All these different countries. Ethiopia's stability or instability would have an impact on all these different countries. So Ethiopia is very important because it has a large population. That population could benefit Ethiopia. It's not an impediment for Ethiopia. It's not something that you have to be scared that they're going to be hungry. The Chinese, the entire world wants to establish itself in Africa. They want to create middle-income countries in Africa, because what's happening in Europe, they used to partner with countries in Europe, and with Germany and everybody. The Germans want to decouple from China's economy, just like they did with Russia. So they want to come and establish themselves in Africa, establish industries, so they can create a workforce that can spend, so they can create consumers that buys the goods and services in Africa. So they wanted to develop African countries. The Chinese have done it in China. They're working with countries in Asia and everywhere. They could do it very easily. The Russians are eager to get away from the European countries. And so Africa is ideal for them. Again, this is why Abiy Ahmed's fear-mongering that Ethiopia is going to go hungry and that 20 million people are going to be in bad shape, that he's threatening Saudi Arabia, South Africa, Tanzania, and the United States and the European countries with the refugees. He told the world that we're going to flood these countries with refugees, and that I'm not going to be responsible for it. Why? Because you didn't help me negotiate a better deal, or you didn't help me to do what I want to do in the sea. Creating base, navy, own a port, whatever. Because you didn't do that, that's what I'm going to flood you with refugees. But that is for somebody that has a party name that calls itself prosperity, for a party that aspires to create prosperity in a nation, to manipulate a nation with fear-mongering, with hunger, is far-fetched from the truth. The people of Eritrea care about the people of Ethiopia. We don't want to see them hungry. We don't want to see them suffer. That's the reason why we fought and bled for them. The people of Eritrea never want to see Ethiopia 1984, one law, starvation. We don't want Westerners to beg on behalf of the Ethiopian people. We aspire to be self-reliant. We work to be self-reliant. And that's what we want for the people of Ethiopia. Ethiopia can feed itself. Ethiopia is one of the richest countries in the world. If you use resources, if you manage the country well. But Abiy Ahmed squandered that opportunity. Abiy Ahmed squandered that opportunity. The way he handled the TPLF, the way he handled Article 39, now he's at the point where no matter what he does, he's not going to be able to do anything to change that. Why? Because he pinned the people of Oromo against Amharas. He pinned the people of Tigray against Amharas. Or instead of helping to bring a united Ethiopia, he exacerbated the divisions. He put Ethiopia in a very, very dangerous place. Now, a lot of Oromos don't see themselves as Ethiopians, they see as Oromos. A lot of Tigrayans don't see themselves as Ethiopians, they see themselves as Tigrayans. The Amhara region, which is the most nationalist Ethiopian region, is now cornered to the point where they are thinking in terms of their region for the first time. And they're forced to defend themselves because they were attacked from so many different angles. It becomes a survival issue. Under these circumstances, you want to create a war front in a region. The idea of we are going to take what is ours by any means necessary. The people, the Horn of Africa, were so hopeful when it came to power. The people, the Horn of Africa, were for the first time able to see, envision a new future of Africa that we've never seen before. You said a lot of good things about the people of Eritrea. You were invited to our homes. The people of Eritrea embraced you. People of Ethiopia embraced the leader of Eritrea. What that peace meant to them. That was a special moment in the history of Africa and the world, in the history of the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia. That was a moment of hope that you played a role in. But under pressure from the Biden administration, you capitulated. Now, no matter what you do, you are not going to be able to get out of this in a good way. Why? Because you undermined many publics. You undermined the aspirations of the people of Ethiopia. You threatened the people of Somalia with your comments. Whether you believe it or not, your comments are a threat. Whether you want to walk back from it, which you didn't. A lot of people said that he's walking back, but I don't believe. I think you opted. You threatened the people of Djibouti. Because when you mention Afar, the Afars in Djibouti, you are poking the sovereignty of Djibouti. When you talk about the Afar of Eritrea, you're doing the same. The agenda is to stop the Belt and Road Initiative from working by having Ethiopia in the sphere of influence of Washington, to ensure that Russia's agenda in the region is not going to work. Eritrea, the closest access from the Indian Ocean, from the Arabian Sea, through the Bab el-Mandeb to the Red Sea, and they can go all the way down to West Africa if they create a rail system. It's in the heart of Africa. Eritrea is one of the most strategic places. Having in Ethiopia, that's wrong, works for them to undermine that agenda. And that is what Abiy is pursuing. But what that means is that it's going to come at a cost for the people of Ethiopia. Ethiopia, at this point, is in danger from so many different angles. The Egyptians, you know the history of Egypt and Ethiopia. By one decision that you made, all these countries are threatened by you. And the enemies of Ethiopia will see the opportunity. That's one. The people of Ethiopia are not going to stand with you, by you, to attack the people of Eritrea, because they know the people of Eritrea are not their enemies. So you don't have the people, the enmity that you want to arouse between the people of Eritrea and Ethiopia. I am certain, as an Eritrean, the government and the people of Eritrea will be very happy for the people of Ethiopia to utilize our port system in a manner that fits the needs of both countries based on agreements. But this was probably one of the most disappointing developments in the history of Africa. This is one of the saddest chapters of the history of Africa, to see somebody with so much hope and aspirations reverse it, supposedly fighting for the interests of Ethiopia, based in aggression, based in illegitimate claims, based in falsehoods, based in skewed history, by buying people to propagate false narratives. That's very unbecoming for a country that sits where the African Union is, to come up with such a disruptive agenda at a moment when the world, especially our region, is coming together, or should come together, work together to exploit our resources. When we are at a moment when we need to embrace each other, at a moment when we need to work with each other, when we needed to work using our collective strengths, at a moment when we can finally say no to Western colonial legacies, when we can finally say, you can work with us, we can work with you, we can partner with you, but not based on how we've done it for a long time. For you to embrace that, again, for what reason? When the Ethiopian people, the Eritrean people, the entire world has given you everything you wanted, makes absolutely no sense. It is the greatest misjudgment in the history of Ethiopia. I think it's going to be your undoing. The people of Ethiopia are fed up with you. They see how you betrayed the people of Eritrea. What you said yesterday didn't mean nothing to you. Today, I don't think there's any Eritrean that could look at you and say, wow, this is a good guy. This is a trustworthy guy. This is a person of God. And I don't think there's any African country that would say the same, African leader that would say the same, because they've seen what you did to Eritrea, how you flipped. That is the most egregious violation of trust I've ever seen. I'm making this video for the people of Ethiopia. I'm making for this video for a lot of the youth that have absolutely no idea about the history and the geopolitical developments that can impact their lives. Ethiopia will disintegrate absent of divine intervention. because of what Abiy Ahmed Ali did. Ethiopia is a powder keg that could really collapse on itself because of where Ethiopia is today. It's not something that we wish for the people of Ethiopia. It's not something that's good for us. It's not good for the region. It's not good for Africa. It works for the people that are trying to create chaos. It works for the people that want to create conflict and manage the conflict, which they've done for generations in Africa. This was an opportunity to get out, but this is where we are. So, folks, I could write articles about this, but it's a book, so it's better for me to come out and just say it the way that I just did. And this is a perspective. There's a lot of analysis that comes out. The government of Eritrea did one thing brilliant, that say don't be provoked. And it's a dilemma. You want to say something, but you don't want to provoke the Ethiopian people the wrong way. So I think this is a good way to say we shouldn't pursue, we shouldn't follow what Abiy is doing. Abiy is reckless. This is reckless. This is very, very reckless for Ethiopia. So I urge the people that are triggered or want to trigger to calm things down. The people of Ethiopia hopefully will overcome this. Hopefully level-headed individuals will take ownership and save the region and Ethiopia.